Good afternoon. Welcome back. This is Arvind Swaminathan and it's in his channel Reality Check with Arvind Swaminathan. Now today we're going to talk on something which most people call it a joke, but I don't think so. It's called the grandmother syndrome. The grandmother syndrome is something which I came across very recently when somebody sent me two clips. One was a comedy act and the other one was one from Dr. Bunker Roy. Now, the one about Dr. Bunker Roy was where he claimed the best way for developing rural areas is to train grandmothers. Now, Dr. Bunker Roy is a gentleman who started a barefoot university for training illiterate and semi-literate people for all sorts of different tasks. Now, he was awarded a Padma Shri in 1986 by Zail Singh, then President of India. Now, his first essay into training grandmothers was in the field of rural electrification. These grandmothers not only electrified their own villages, but spread the word to a whole lot of other places. And they did this by using solar panels or solar electricity. Further, these grandmothers also developed a method for waterproofing roofs of buildings. However, they kept this information to themselves. They won't tell their menfolks because they believe that the menfolk will sell it off and get drunk on the proceeds, which is not very helpful because it ruins their own market. So why did he choose grandmothers? Well, first, most of these grandmothers had very few household responsibilities because of their age. Second, their minds were still highly functional and still working overtime at times. And third, this is the important bit, their minds were not only a reservoir of all past experiences, but also capable of learning new things and retaining that knowledge. Now, so often we've heard this term, it's a man's world. And women have brainwashed men into believing that yes, it is a man's world. But is it? Who is responsible for the upbringing of these menfolk? The same mothers, grandmothers? So is it a man's world? Or is it a man's world ruled by women? So much of industry, for instance, is geared towards women. We're talking about beauty salons, beauty treatments, lipstick, nail polish, mascara, new clothes. Women, for instance, they'll wear a new dress once or twice, they never wear it again. Menfolk, on the other hand, they would buy a suit and wear it until it's almost hanging off and it's threadbare. And they will still want to wear it because it's an old friend and they don't want to get rid of it. Now we come to the comedy act. He says that men's minds, everything is in little boxes. And when he wants to discuss something, he brings out that box, opens it out, discusses, puts everything back, and then returns it to its normal position without touching any of the other boxes. That is why nothing gets mixed up and he discusses only that one subject. Women, on the other hand, everything is interconnected. It's all on one wire. That is why they never forget anything. I know personally from my mother. She'd throw something at me which happened 25 years ago. She'd remember it even though I'd forgotten it. Men have one particular box which women either don't understand or can't stand. It's called the nothing box. And it has nothing in it. Women don't understand it because they don't have this box. They have that one wire with everything on it. Which is why women cannot stand the sight of a man sitting down doing nothing. If they see this, they will find him something to do and keep prodding him until he does it. Why are women's minds in that one wire where everything is interconnected. If one goes back into history, one realizes it's only in the last 100 years or so that women have been allowed the luxury of learning to read and write. And that too, among the higher ups. Among the lower downs, it's even more recent. All these years, throughout the centuries, anything that women needed to know, they had to learn and commit to memory. There's no other way. They couldn't write it down. Nobody could send them a note which they could read because they were illiterate. Hence, whatever they've learned, and they had to learn a great many things, had to be committed to memory in such a way that they could bring it out at any moment whenever needed. What were the things they had to do? They had to clean the house, wash, iron if necessary, cook, sew, even cure and tan leather at times. Whereas all the men folk did was sit around and eat, tone up their muscles for manual work or fighting, and of course, procreation. Men could learn to read and write in many instances, but they were just too lazy. They didn't care. They made no effort to do so. As the girls grew older, they had to learn things like childbirth, looking after children, also basic every day-to-day illnesses, tending of wounds of the menfolk and so on, which menfolk had no clue about. In today's world, girls and women have access to everything in the West. And they think everything from the West is wonderful, and what is Indian is useless and old-fashioned. Now, why is this so? They want to dress provocatively, go to parties, drink, smoke, just as their Western counterparts. But they don't seem to understand that there is a price tag which comes to it. When you buy that particular system, the price tag is something which most people here are not willing to pay. Now, in this instance, the price tag that comes with this particular lifestyle, all this sex is casual. Physical relationships are expected. Now, if you don't want physical relationships, then do not go in for this particular lifestyle. We have to understand this. It's like if you go to buy something, you have to pay for it. Hence, the price tag is something which you cannot separate. It's two sides of the same coin. You take one side, you have to accept the other. You can't take one and reject the other. The reason it happens over there is girls and boys choose their own partners. In fact, in many instances, they resent interference from parents or anybody else. Here, on the other hand, partners are chosen for boys and girls by their families. It's only now, thanks to Western influence, that some of it is beginning to change. But in majority of cases, it is still the old family system. In conclusion, training of grandmothers is definitely a very good idea, simply because of all the experience and knowledge they already have, which they've gained over their lifetime. Now, it's a classic example of using all that energy and all that memory which youngsters need, which they don't have any access to, simply because the world has moved on. They don't have the same problems. However, the other point is, youngsters don't seem to pay any attention to those memories because they have computers and mobile phones now. So they tend to rely only on these things. Now, they must understand that you cannot rely totally on any one thing. You must have a balance between your own brain, you must use it also, and reliance on technology. You've got to use both. The one without the other is not exactly conducive to proper further development. Last but not least, don't take anything for granted, ever. An illiterate mind could be brilliant. A formally educated mind could be pretty mundane and very conservative. Again, these are, I have personally come across people who were illiterate, and so much I've learned from them is something I have never managed to learn from the so called educated world. So please remember, do not ever take anything for granted. And this is a piece of advice which somebody gave me a long time ago, and I found it so useful. Well, folks, thank you for watching. I hope you liked what you heard. If you did, please like and subscribe to my channel, Reality Check with Arvind Swaminathan, and share it with your friends and relatives and their respective groups also. Bye, and I'll see you next week.